Well, thank you all for joining me today, and thank you to the Davis Phinney Foundation for having me. I'm very excited to be here to talk about this topic of falls prevention. Being a physical therapist, I am obviously very biased about exercise and feel very passionate about exercise, but the exciting thing about people with Parkinson's disease is there's a lot of evidence behind exercise and that it can be very beneficial in improving your lives. So I'm really excited to talk about that today with you. So I don't think we can talk about preventing falls without acknowledging that we all have a risk for falls. So I have a certain level of risk and each of you have a certain level of risk. So I could potentially walk down those stairs at the end of the presentation and fall. I hope I don't, but it's a risk. And so acknowledging the different factors that play into our individual risk for falls. So there are factors that apply to all of us, despite our comorbidities that we might have. So tripping hazards are the main ones, but acknowledging that sometimes pets and children and grandchildren also create really nice obstacles. They always like to pull their little toys out, right, when you're not looking. So acknowledging that there's a lot of factors that maybe we don't always have control over in preventing falls, but being aware of them can also help us. Changes in surfaces affect our risk for falls, so it's a lot easier to walk on firm surfaces like your hardwood floors or tile than walking outside on grass, and transitioning between surfaces can be challenging. Lighting definitely affects our risk for falls, and as people age, over time we tend to depend on our vision quite a bit more for maintaining balance, and so poor lighting can result in an increased risk for falls. And as was mentioned earlier in previous sessions, fatigue plays a big role in our risk for falls and being able to maintain balance. There's a number of factors that can further put you at higher risk for falls. So that shuffling gait, as we call it, where you're not able to pick your feet up as well as you were before. Freezing gait, so if you're tending to walk and feel like you can't pick your feet up and they just don't move like you want them to, there's been research showing that that puts you at higher risk for falls as well. With Parkinson's disease, I'm sure a number of you feel like you're just not able to respond to loss of balance as well as maybe you were before, or that reaction time is decreased. And so being aware of that can also help you make improvements or be more safe as you move forward in your movement. So thinking about your home, and so how many of you, just by a raise of hands, has fallen before in your home? Yeah, so a lot of hands go up. And so just there's a few simple things that apply to everybody across the board that you can do to make your home safer now. Today, when you go home after this presentation, we can all take a look at our homes and see what we can do to be safer in the homes. So I've listed a number of them here. Removing clutter is probably the largest thing, and making sure that you have really open pathways. Removing throw rugs, because those tend to catch our toes, trip up on assisted devices such as walkers or canes. So the bathroom is also the highest risk for fall environment in the home because it's wet and slippery. So using the non-slip mats in the bathroom. And the other component is a grab bar. And if you don't have a grab bar in your bathroom, you might consider installing one now, even though you feel like you don't need it now. But maybe there's one day where you do, where you're feeling really tired, and that grab bar might be a great safety feature for you in that moment. And by the way, towel racks are not great grab bars, so just keep that in mind that they're not meant to bear weight. So you might consider putting a grab bar where you would have a towel rack and using it as a towel rack, and that would be okay, but just a regular towel rack isn't really meant to bear your weight. So using railings on the stairs, even healthy individuals who don't have Parkinson's disease frequently use railings to decrease risk for falls. At night, we tend to get up and feel our way to the bathroom, but if you're at higher risk for falls, that might not be the safest option. So turning on lights, or you might consider putting a lamp next to your bed that you can turn on and then get up and move around your home. There are also touch lights. I don't know if anybody's ever seen those, but if you have trouble with that fine motor of turning switches and buttons, they have touch lights that can be useful for that. And then putting regularly used items in places that are easy to reach. So if you drink coffee every morning, you might not put your coffee mugs way up high where you have to reach really far, or where you even have to get on a step stool to reach them. You might just ask your family members to help you move all those items that you frequently use in the home to easily reachable locations. And if you're ever considering modifying your home environment, you might consult an occupational therapist. They give really great recommendations for home modifications and can really help you identify, well, where is the best place to put a grab bar for you individually? Or how wide should I make my doorways? Or how should I position the shower? So just something to keep in mind as you move forward. People do tend to modify the home so you can stay in the home longer, and that's excellent. So feel free to use those resources. As you're out and about, you also want to be sure to pace yourself. So we talked about in earlier sessions as well about fatigue. So you might plan your activities knowing that you have 5 things to do today, and you might need to spread those activities out throughout the day rather than squeezing them all in the morning, because that's going to just wear you out and you won't have any energy to finish all of them. So thinking about that, how you're planning your days. Also, for individuals who like to take showers at night before you go to bed, you might consider taking that shower a little bit earlier, say after dinner in the evening, when you're less tired and you're able to more safely get in and out of the shower and do all those activities in the bathroom when you're not as fatigued. And then you can kind of relax and lounge around the home. So it might be a little bit of a shift in your daily schedule, but it can be really successful in decreasing your risk for falls. It's really hard to do multiple things at one time, and with Parkinson's, that's especially true and can result in a decrease in your balance, because you're trying to maintain your balance while doing multiple things at a time. A really good example that I think about is when we go grocery shopping and you come home and you're carrying all of the bags in from the car and your phone rings. You're then trying to answer the phone and get in the door, right? And if you have a pet, then you're trying to make sure they don't run out the door at the same time. So you might be doing 4 or 5 things at one time. So in order to decrease your risk for falls during activities like that, you might consider waiting to answer the phone until you've already gotten inside, or you might answer your phone and put the bags down and then finish unloading the car after you've completed your conversation. So a point in time when you're at higher risk for falls, for people with Parkinson's disease, it's been shown when you're freezing, right? When you feel like you can't move, or also with turning. So a good example with turning is when you're turning to go sit down in a chair, you feel like you're walking up to it really, really well, but as soon as you try to go to turn it, feel like you can't quite move as quickly or as smoothly as you were before, and then you're trying to kind of shuffle to back up to the chair. So here's just a few techniques for people with Parkinson's that's based on some evidence that have been shown to help kind of get through those freezing episodes and to help turn more safely. So a big one is take a deep breath, right? And we talked about earlier before that if you're tense and really frustrated and anxious about this movement that you're going to have to do, walking through the doorway or turning to sit in a chair, and it starts to become harder to move, we tend to tense up, right? And so in that point in time, you might stop and take a deep breath, and then think about what you're going to do, that one thing. So if you're in a freezing moment, and we talked about multitasking, the theory behind that is that you're taking in a lot of cues at once. So we take for granted that to turn and sit feels like one motion previously, but with Parkinson's disease, you're actually getting a lot of that conflict. As Mike Studer was talking about before, I'm registering where the chair is. So I'm taking in that visual information, and I'm trying to gauge how quickly I need to approach the chair, and then I'm gauging how I'm going to turn my feet all at the same time, and if I'm using a walker, I'm also trying to manage that walker at the same time. So I'm doing 3, 4 things at the same time. So you might have to actually stop and think walker, if you're using one, or you might think lift one foot, lift the other foot, lift one foot, lift the other foot. So the other thing that evidence is telling us is that music can be a great way to make exercise more fun and engaging, and there's just something about that rhythm, that beat, that can help you move better. So putting music to your exercises that you do at home can be a really helpful way to make it more meaningful for you. So if you start exercising sooner, you will delay the progression of that disease by greater effects. So that doesn't mean that if you're later in the disease process, exercise isn't good for you. It is. What it really means is that you should start exercising now. And so the other two components we're going to hit on here today also is that exercise, you need to do it a lot, and you need to work hard at it. And so I think this really reinforces a lot of the messages from earlier in the day, that being consistent in your exercise program is really, really important, and then exercising at an appropriate intensity level. So if you're not exercising hard enough, your body and your brain just doesn't know it needs to get better. We need to challenge it so that it knows it needs to get better. And so I would encourage you, when you do your exercise, to think about how hard you're working. And so we talk a lot about, in physical therapy, asking how hard you're working, and some therapists might ask you to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being, I'm sitting on the couch, I got my feet up, and I'm doing nothing, and 10 being, I'm completely exhausted, I can't breathe, I'm sweating, I'm actually almost collapsing on the floor. Now, we don't want to work that hard, that's not what we're going for, but we do want you to work in this zone of about 4 to 7, where your heart rate is getting up there a little bit. It might be normal that you're breathing heavily. We should be able to talk. We do want you to be able to talk while you exercise, but you might only be able to say a couple words in between each breath, and that's okay. And you might also find that some people get warm and sweat, and that's okay too. We want you to feel comfortable, but comfortable knowing that you might have to push yourself a little bit. The last really big message too, before we actually start doing more exercises that you can use in the home, is thinking about why the exercises are important for you. So what is important for you to be able to do, or for you to be able to continue to do? So maybe it's not a problem now, but you don't want it to be a problem down the road. So you might consider strengthening that movement or that activity so that you're able to continue to do it. And so, is it important for you to get up out of a chair, a lazy boy recliner, or the sofa, whatever you like to sit on at home? Is that important to you? And so these are just examples, but I would encourage you to think about what is important for you to do at home or with your family or in the community, and find a way to strengthen that movement. But what really is important is that exercise does not have to be boring. It can be fun, and it should be fun. We want it to be engaging for you, and exercise actually has more benefit for you if you like what you're doing. So up here and in the previous talks today, they've talked about a number of activities that have evidence behind them. So these have shown to make improvements in balance and decreasing your fall risk just by doing these group activities. So boxing, tango and dance, Tai Chi and yoga are probably the most researched activities associated with Parkinson's disease, but there are others out there, and really what we want you to do is be active and enjoying life. So find something that you like doing. And then, like I mentioned, you can always add music to it, and music that you love. So when do you know when to seek out a physical therapist? And so I would say that probably the main key that we focus on is function. So if you're starting to feel like you're having a harder time getting around or getting in and out of bed or doing some activity that you used to love to do, then that's the time to seek us out. We'll help give you strategies to problem solve through your movement challenges. And so I would encourage you to seek out a therapist, and like Mike Studer said, a neurotrained therapist or a therapist that is specialized in Parkinson's disease. The other time that would be good to see a physical therapist is if you've had a fall. So even if you don't get hurt, but you're having falls in the home, that's a sign that there's something going on with your balance. And so maybe it's time to get that assessed. And so physical therapists should be looking at your balance in a more objective way and using measures to rate your fall risk. And so if you're having falls in the home, that would be a good time to seek out a physical therapist. The best way to do that actually is to ask your doctor for a referral. Most physical therapy sessions require a physician's referral, not all, so that's not true for all, but you might seek out a referral from your doctor in order to be able to get that covered by your insurance. And then seeking out a therapist that's trained to treat people with Parkinson's disease. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to practice an exercise that helps strengthen that movement. And so that's what I'm excited to share with you today is activities to strengthen movements that are meaningful to you. So you may not need this today, but maybe down the road you will need it to help get unstuck or to help safely turn and sit. So for those of you that would like to try this exercise with me, I invite you to do that. You can perform it in sitting if you don't feel comfortable standing, or you can stand like it showed in the chair, and you can stand next to the chair for support if you would like as well, with the chair kind of on your side. And so we are going to march in place, okay? And we're all going to kind of do it together. And the key thing that I want you to think about is really exaggerating, lifting those knees in the air. So we're going to do high knees, like so. And we're going to play some music to go along with it because exercise should be fun, right? We want it to be fun. So we're going to go ahead and play some music. And we're going to march. And you can march to the beat if you feel you can. Or you might do the half beat if it's too fast. Okay? Yep, and if you want to do it in sitting too, that's fine, good. We're just going to do about 15 seconds of it, really high, exaggerating those knees. Excellent. And I don't know what everybody's music preference was in here, so I just guessed. All right, excellent, perfect. I appreciate all of your efforts in getting up and doing that. Go ahead and have a seat. Okay, so the next exercise is going to strengthen that movement of getting up out of the chair. So I'm going to do it with you actually. And you may choose to push with your arms from the chair. If you feel like it's really easy to stand up that way, you might choose to either put your hands on your lap or cross them across your chest like this. And we're going to practice just standing up, sitting down, and you're going to see how many you can do in the 15 seconds that they play the music. Up and down, all right? So they're going to go ahead and play the music for us. All right, good. And I want you to think about that. How hard am I working? Am I working at a 4 to 7? Is this really easy? If it's not easy and you feel like you are challenging yourself, then good, stay at that level. If you feel like it's really easy, you might consider going faster. Okay? Good, perfect. Go ahead and stop. Thank you for trying that. So that gives you a range of what you could do of exercises starting at different levels because we all have different functional abilities in this room, and so making it appropriate to you. Okay, so is a reaching with rotation exercise. So reaching incorporates into a number of functional tasks. The one example I gave earlier was reaching into the refrigerator, which I like to eat, so that was important for me. You might have your own important task that associates with this. You can start in sitting, and this activity can also be done in standing, but you all did it a little bit earlier in one of the breakout move sessions where he was having you reach down for the knee and reach up high. You can do it in sitting, also really isolates that core muscle and helps give rotation to the trunk. So everybody who would like to try this activity, we're going to just do a few sets sitting here. And you can start by reaching with one arm across and then reach with the other arm across. Good. If you'd like, you also can do both hands. Excellent. And if you feel like this isn't challenging you, you're not in that 4 to 7 range, you can start doing the diagonal, the reach up and down. And each time you're doing this, you're reaching as far as you can. Excellent. Perfect. Great, you can go ahead and stop. So if you're doing this activity at home, you might do both directions to give equal stretch to both sides of the body. All right, so the big take-home point from all of this is there's a lot of information and tips in those slides is that you can start today to make a change in your risk for falls. So go home, take a look at your home, and see what you can do to remove barriers in the home. Focus on one thing at a time. right? Life gets busy, but try to remember to take a deep breath and just focus on one thing at a time. And then if you're not already exercising, now's the time to do it. So I gave you 3 exercises. They're just 3 examples. If there's other exercises that are more exciting to you or more appealing, do those and do them regularly. And then remember to do them hard enough that you're challenging yourself.